What is going on, everybody? Welcome to my top 10 interior defensive linemen in the 2019 NFL Draft. A couple pieces of housekeeping here. A reminder, please do hit that like button. It's the easiest way to support the channel, help it grow if you do enjoy my draft content and other stuff. Also, subscribe or at least come back here next Thursday, draft night, and Friday, for that matter. I will be doing for the first time a live coverage of the NFL Draft, answering your questions, giving live feedback on picks, trying to predict who's going to go next, talking about scheme fits, everything. Really excited for that. Going to be live here on YouTube. And lastly, if you're shopping for tickets, whether it's, NFL tickets with the schedule coming out tonight or baseball games, basketball games, head over to SeatGeek. You'll get the best prices there anyway. That's where I actually buy all my tickets. Use promo code ThatFranchiseGuy. You'll save $20. Hell, if you're going to a baseball game, that's free tickets for a lot of cities. So definitely check that out. Now let's get into it here, not waste any more time. So number one here, Quinnen Williams really owned the pre-draft process, kind of shrugged off some concerns that he might be another Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen. If you're taking a guy in the top 5, you want a dominant all-pro Hall of Fame caliber defender, not a 10-year pro that's kind of in and out of Pro Bowls and stuff like those other players. So he shows the physical upside to have the potential of a guy like, say, Fletcher Cox. Now, really the only thing you're debating here with Quinnen Williams, is he the most valuable player in this entire draft? And there's a big debate right now kind of amidst NFL minds on what's more important, interior pressure or exterior pressure. And, can you take a guy like Quinnen Williams and pressure the quarterback just as much as an elite edge prospect like a Nick Bosa? My take on that is I think interior pressure, if done at an elite clip like Fletcher Cox or obviously Aaron Donald being kind of the rarity, is a better way to disrupt the quarterback. The only thing is it is much less consistent and easy on a macro scale to find that. So my comparison for him is Gerald McCoy, for example, who's maybe a 60 to 70 pressure a year type player. Certainly a guy that can make a lot of all pros. But if you're going to take Quinnen Williams in the top 3, especially if you're going to take him over Nick Bosa, he kind of needs to be Fletcher Cox or Aaron Donald and be getting 100 pressures a year, which, it certainly can happen. And I think if you hit on that, it is more valuable than having a 100 pressure guy off the edge. But if you look at like the top 25 pressure leaders in the league, only 3 or 4 of them are interior guys. So it's just a little more of a gamble that he can become an elite interior guy. We know that the NFL has devalued nose tackle types who are great against the run, which Quinnen Williams is dominant against the run. The main question is he going to continue to develop to be that elite type of pass rusher? I think he is going to enter as a very good pass rusher like a Gerald McCoy. The biggest question with him, is he going to pay back dividends as an interior pass rusher? And I think there's a good chance of that, hence why I have him at number 2, but I do think it is a question. So let's move on, talk about Ed Oliver, number 2. He's been kind of one of my guys throughout this whole process, and you can't really call him my guy anymore because everyone's in love with Ed Oliver at this point, at least on draft Twitter. Now, if you kind of pay attention to inside sources or whatever from the people that put that information out, it does seem like the NFL does not value Ed Oliver as much as they should. I mean, this guy was kind of like consensus number 1 player in the draft heading into the season. Houston, everything kind of hit the fan there, and Oliver did what he could to brace the storm, but he kind of fell under the radar a little bit and didn't have that high production that you look for. He was constantly doubled and triple teamed, sometimes used out of position on the edge. It was just a rough year. But you guys know I'm willing to look past surrounding circumstance and kind of what was asked of the player. When you're getting double teamed and triple teamed and everyone in the nation knows you're the best player in college football, it's going to be hard to live up to that expectations. So I still think Ed Oliver is a top 5 blue chip prospect in this class. I have him way ahead of Josh Allen. You hear people say the big 3 are Quinnen Williams, Nick Bosa, and Josh Allen. I don't think it's even close. I think Ed Oliver is a much better prospect than Josh Allen. Now, my NFL comp for him is Grady Jarrett. Now, the tricky part here is that NFL comp Aaron Donald? And that's kind of the big conversation, is can he be Aaron Donald? Yes, he can be Aaron Donald. Do not get that wrong. No, he doesn't have as much of a refined skill set coming out. He's a younger player coming out than Aaron Donald was, but he has all of the physical tools. He has the flashes. He has that same inhuman burst on the inside, the bend, acceleration, the ability to basically be running past guards and centers by the time the ball is snapped. And just the leverage he plays with, it's just unblockable at times. So yes, he will have to keep continuing to develop that kind of general awareness, skill set, feel for the game as a pass rusher, but I actually have him with the highest potential of any interior guy in this class. If I was on the board, I would actually have to think long and hard about taking Ed Oliver over Quinnen Williams. I just think if either of these guys are going to become a Fletcher Cox or an Aaron Donald as that dominant presence, I would put my chips on Ed Oliver, but Quinnen Williams probably a little safer. So it really just comes down to preference. I am extremely high on Ed Oliver. You can see that overall grade is butting right up against Quinnen Williams there. So then we got Jeffery Simmons here, number 3. Really a dominant player. I think he was kind of the core unit for that entire Mississippi State defense that is putting a lot of really intriguing prospects into the draft this year. I think he helped a lot of things click there, mainly with Montez Sweat, but also the pressure he generated helped some guys in that secondary as well. Now Simmons, probably a top 10 prospect in most draft classes. Before the unfortunate ACL tear, he still very well could have gone top 10 in this class if that never happened. I think he could be a guy that dominates the pre-draft process, just like we've seen with Quinnen and Oliver. So I still would take Jeffery Simmons in the first round. I would have to be a team like Oakland or Miami or Washington, though Washington doesn't really need an interior guy. They're kind of set, but it has to be a team that does not need an impact performance from that first round pick. But this could be a Jalen Smith type of pick here at the end of the first round, a guy who bounces back. Now, Smith's injury was much worse. An ACL tear these days is much closer to like a high ankle sprain, like honestly, in terms of long-term impact. Like, you will come back from an ACL tear. This guy has come back from much worse than that as a guy that faced some adversity in high school as well with little domestic violence situation, but has seemingly really responded well to that and is just, everyone raves about the type of man he is. So I don't think you're worried about that. I think Jeffery Simmons will come back in 2020 as a top 20 interior defensive lineman. I don't have much worry about that. And you might even get him back by November. It was an ACL tear in February. We saw Hunter Henry come back, and he got hurt later in the process. So you very well could get something from Jeffery Simmons, but Henry is a veteran. Jeffery Simmons, a rookie, would still have a pretty big learning curve to get back to that situation. So I love Jeffery Simmons. I would still take him in the first round despite the ACL injury. I think he is going to have a fantastic 10-year career, make about 6 or 7 Pro Bowls for whatever that's worth, maybe a couple All-Pros, and go out on top. So number 4 here, we've got Dexter Lawrence, nose tackle type. I have been very critical of the idea of taking a nose tackle in the first round. I have mocked him to the Chargers consistently there at the back end of the first round, a team that really doesn't have a lot of weaknesses except for a dominant physical presence up front. Realistically, he's probably worth about a second rounder, an early second round pick. The one thing I'll say about a lot of these interior linemen from this point on is you still got Ndamukong Suh, Muhammad Wilkerson, Corey Lugitt, and a long list of pretty good, starting caliber interior defensive linemen available on the free agent market. So that market really has not been set yet. So if you're going to take one of these D tackles with a top 50 pick, which is generally where you're getting, impact starters is in the top 50, there is an opportunity cost lost there because there's a lot of cheap contracts to be had in free agency. So, these top 3 guys I think have potential to be, all pro type of guys who can rush the passer and stop the run, be 3 down interior guys. That's a little different than what you're getting in free agency. But from this point on, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be pulling the trigger on many of these guys in the top 50 if I was in the GM chair, because I feel confident in my abilities to pick up one of these free agents. So that's just a little side note. I do think some of these guys will fall a little further than some of these mock drafts out there just because of supply and demand. There's just a lot of D linemen available at the moment as opposed to like corner, wide receiver, offensive line, for example. Looking at the type of players that are hitting free agency on a macro scale will really tell you where the state of the NFL is and can be a good predictive indicator for the draft. So anyway, that's a tangent. We're done with that. Dexter Lawrence, a nose tackle type. I actually like him better, though, than Vita Vea, which I called the worst pick in the first round last year. I think Lawrence is actually a more athletic guy, has a little more upside to be a good pass rusher. Now, Vea actually rushed the passer a little well his rookie year, so don't get me wrong there. But I like Dexter Lawrence's general feel in the run game. Excellent. He may not necessarily get a lot of pressures on the quarterback, but he will force double teams. He's going to be a good guy for like a 3-4 defense. He can eat blocks. You're not going to want to single team him because he will run over you. The other thing he does very well, which I think is always an underrated aspect of being a defensive lineman, is he will swat balls, and he has that long arm at 6'4", and if he's getting single team and you're trying to throw in that run lane, he is going to get a lot of batted balls. So I do like a lot of aspects of his game. He's still young, really athletic guy at his size. So I do like him. Supply and demand would probably push him into the second round. For me, realistically, the only team that I can really picture taking him in the first would be the Chargers if they like him. Number 5, we got Dre'Mont Jones here. Extremely explosive on tape. A young guy. Could be a bit of a tweener. There's actually flashes of him on tape that I just kind of was envisioning Cameron Jordan. Now take that with a grain of salt. He's got a lot of developing to do before he turns into Cameron Jordan. But a bigger guy, and that would of course imply that he would be switching to the edge. He played interior in college, so I'll rank him here. He could really go either way. He could maybe gain a little weight and be a really good interior guy. But his first step is just elite. There was a lot of times where he was frankly just unblockable, just blowing by guys, good bend on the inside, which isn't as important as it is on the outside, but still can be very hard to block some of these faster, quicker guys. That's a lot of Aaron Donald's success right there. So I like Dre'Mont Jones' upside a lot. I had originally had a first-round grade on him, but he comes out at the combine, doesn't necessarily match the freaky athleticism that I thought he had on tape. I still think he is an exceptional athlete. You can't put too much emphasis on those combine grades, but sometimes it can, turn it down just a notch. So I think he's going to be a really good project piece here. My comparison is William Hayes, just kind of a matchup problem with that size and speed. And if he can develop more of a skill set, again, he is young, a true junior. Could be a lot of better football ahead for Dre'Mont Jones if he can get with the right coaching staff. Number 6, we got Christian Wilkins, and this is everything I'm talking about with the available players on the market. I think Christian Wilkins is an incredible player. I've enjoyed watching him at Clemson. He's everything you look for in a football player. He's tough, a good leader, a balanced defensive lineman. He can rush the passer a little bit. He's disciplined as a run defender, but he just doesn't have that physical upside. I think a lot of the things he does in college, surrounded by all that talent where he did see a lot of one-on-one looks, it's not always going to translate in the NFL. I do think he's going to be a very good player. You're going to get a plug-and-play number 2 defensive tackle, and that's probably what he's going to be for about 8 years. Dalvin Tomlinson being my comparison here. I really don't have anything against Christian Wilkins. I just, because of supply and demand, don't really see him as a first-round pick. I think there's too much opportunity cost lost there. So then number 7, Jerry Tillery, kind of a high upside swing for the fences here. Really lengthy, 6'6", 295. I kind of see him as more of a fit in a 3-4. Dean Lowry is my comparison for him. You just aren't supposed to see guys this big and powerful move as well as he does. And he shows a lot of great flashes. The problem is he's a senior, never really put together a developed game here. Doesn't have a whole lot of consistency to him. Needs to improve his overall discipline as a run defender, needs to develop some more of a skill set as a pass rusher. So I'm picturing him as kind of a 4th rotational D lineman to start that has certainly the upside of a quality starter in the NFL. Then at number 8, we've got Khalen Saunders. Really unique player here. He's known for the backflips that he was doing on Twitter. Small school guy, and he's a really unique play style. He has a really unique play style. He doesn't really explode off the ball, even though he is an explosive athlete. He kind of stands up, plays more like a traditional nose tackle, isn't really trying to blow you off the ball, though I think he does have the potential to develop that part of his game if a coach could kind of teach that in him, because he's definitely got the physical traits to do it. It's just his tape doesn't it's just not very consistent with that. He kind of stands up, tries to break down what's going to happen, and he has really quick hands and feet. They even used him like standing up as an outside linebacker blitzing, and he shows like a nice, rare swim move at his size. So he's just kind of a unique player here. My comparison is Michael Pierce. I do picture him as a nose tackle at the next level. A guy that can kind of surprise you with his ability to kind of swim and spin and use his quick feet to get around you. If he can ever channel that athleticism, though, into having a good power rush as well, where he can explode off the ball and drive dudes back, which there really is no reason he can't have that element of his game. If that happens, we're talking about, potentially like a Mike Daniels type of player here who has insane leverage, a versatile skill set. So I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. He just needs to develop that. He also is pretty good with his hands to get off blocks in run lanes as well. But it's kind of inconsistent at times because he does just kind of stand straight up. He doesn't necessarily get moved, but a lot of times he's just kind of standing there, and his arm tackles as well, because he doesn't have elite length. Sometimes runners can get through his arm tackles. So number 9 here, Gerald Willis. Really explosive dude. My comparison is Jihad Ward, who's kind of come on later here in his NFL career. Is just a bit of a handful. Fires off the ball. He's got some nice pass rush moves as well. He will swim or spin around you. A little inconsistent with that and doesn't really have much of a counter move. My thing with him is he never really has too much of a plan. He lacks kind of discipline and play recognition. He's a redshirt senior and is still a little bit raw, which does concern me a little bit. I see him as a rotational third guy in your lineup. Maybe you have more of a Linval Joseph nose tackle type and you want to bring in someone that can just get after the quarterback. I kind of see him as that, like a Jihad Ward. Or even like Corey Lugitt has kind of become that for the Chargers. He does have the upside, though, to become a full-time starter. Don't get me wrong. Then number 10, Trysten Hill. Kind of an under-the-radar guy, super explosive athlete, fires off the ball, has that elite first step, leverage, power, bull rush that you really look for in a lot of these guys. A true junior, certainly still pretty raw. Does remind me of some of these third-round guys, like Bilal Nichols he was actually a fifth-round guy. Even like Chris Jones. Some of these just freak athletes that get to the next level and really develop a nice game. He could certainly be that. So if I'm a team that has room to kind of put him in there as your fourth or even fifth guy, and you have a good defensive line coach and surrounded by, a good defensive line, this Trysten Hill, if he ended up being one of the 5 best interior guys out of this class, it would not surprise me in the absolute slightest. So that's it. Again, no film from this for copyright reasons. If you want to see some of my film breakdowns, you can get it on my Patreon. And if you want to see where the rest of the D tackles fall in line here, you can also get access to my complete draft board there on Patreon. We've got 32 defensive tackles ranked currently. So check that out if you want. A reminder, like that video if you enjoyed. We're about a week away from the draft. Man, am I excited. So thanks for watching, guys. Cheers as always, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.